Welcome back to the Genius Scale podcast, everybody, where we interview the genius of the day and we explore how they're applying that genius to the world of business. Now, today's genius is Vikram Kanda, the Chief Medical Officer and also an owner of Vue Health, a digital marketing agency focused primarily on the healthcare industry. It's going to be a really interesting podcast. Welcome, Vic.
Thank you. And I got to say, you said digital marketing agency, and I think all marketing includes digital now. There's no such thing as a digital only marketing agency, especially in healthcare. We're in a world where pharma's finally caught up and we've moved past just sales reps to everything needs to be omnichannel and digital, of course, as well.
That's right. You guys have been in business for a long time. You're a very large independent agency. Can you walk us through very quickly this journey that you guys went through to get to this point?
Absolutely. I don't think we're that large or that old at this point. We were founded in 2016. My business partner, our founding partner and CEO, Catherine Wilson, had this idea. Well, we were both at different agencies and we had both grown to positions where we were overseeing work and not really in the trenches with clients anymore. And it was just not fun anymore. I spent most of my time just writing the SLA back and forth, having high level discussions, but not digging into the strategy, not digging into our clients' needs. And, I was about to actually go in house and take a job somewhere when I called Catherine and I said, hey, like, where should I move here in Boston? And she was like, actually, I want to start an agency. I want to do it differently. I want to get back to working with clients and helping them figure out the issues that are keeping them up at night and help bring life-changing medications to market in a way that really is meaningful and really does disrupt and change the ideology and the thought process that clinicians have right now, where they're just using the tried and true to use something really innovative. And that's where Vue was really born.
Right. And what innovative approach are you guys bringing to the table that other people just don't have?
So it's really interesting. Over the past few years, as most people have probably seen across the advertising agency world, but especially in pharma, the big agency network model has basically taken over where the Omnicoms and the IPGs were just gobbling up smaller agencies. So the strategic thinking really is one of the key things that just has gotten lost, right? It basically becomes a playbook of, oh, you want to launch this product? Well, you're going to need XYZ, and it's just basically a foundational approach to getting the work done. And what you've lost is sort of that seasoned expertise of having launched different products in different spaces and understanding what may work and what may not, depending on the different stakeholders that you have, right? Like the different HCP, healthcare professional targets that are out there. So, what we do at Vue is a real, senior first approach where it's our team all collectively have years of experience. We don't have a bunch of 20-year-olds running around, running accounts, trying to figure out next steps and just basically taking orders on the phone like it was, like you're running a fast food joint. For us, it's really digging into the why, the how. And yeah, we have added innovation. We have AI. We do, our content generation differently. We apply adult learning principles to everything that we create as an agency and as a pharmaceutical advertising agency. We really have a science first approach where we have dedicated medical directors, PharmDs, PhDs, MDs across all of our accounts. Whereas at a traditional big pharma agency, you would have a medical strategist, someone like myself with a PhD running around on 20 different accounts, basically just dropping in here, saying something nice and billing $400 an hour. That's not our approach at Vue. We make sure that the science really is dissected and we identify that true hook. We figure out what it is that's going to change the mindset of our stakeholders. And we make sure that it's clear, it's concise, it's free of vague qualifiers, especially in this very regulated world where in pharma advertising, everyone's seen commercials on TV or you've seen a banner ad, right? And you see one thought provoking headline with a bunch of small qualifying text. And that's what we are trying to get away from, especially as we approach this new world where pharma, like I said before, has come into the digital world. And, omnichannel is the big world, it's still the big word of the day, even, a few years in to digital pharma marketing. And really what that means is just the right message at the right time, and that right journey. And that's what we really strive for. And we use adult learning principles to make sure that we get that point across, not just in the words, but in the creative and the dynamic approach that we have.
Got it. That is very innovative. Let's break that down and dissect it. The first things first, you guys apply PhD level intelligence to every client and very dedicated amount of time. What sort of impact do you see when you apply that sort of approach versus a regular traditional marketing agency? What's the actual bottom line or top line effect?
The bottom line effect is that the words themselves really do come across with true meaning, right? It's true to the science. You never lose the science, but you bring it through in a way that is really concise and clear for different audiences, right? And you never want to have any of your claims or any of your messages go go beyond what your references can say, right? Go beyond the true meaning and the clinical impact. Sometimes we like to say that something is going to be revolutionary, but like it's a statistically significant difference, but it's not clinically meaningful, right? It's where we make sure at Vue that by dissecting the science, what I mean is that we're trying to find the true clinical differentiators for a product. And we have the luxury of being here in the Boston area to work on life-changing, life-altering medications, gene therapy and the like. We're not working on a lot of Me Too medications. But and what I mean by Me Too is like, another of 1,000 diabetes medications, right? Like, we're really helping, especially in rare disease, bringing a life-changing therapy to a family where not being on that therapy could be the difference between life or death in a lot of ways. And our job is to bridge that gap of communication so that that doctor knows that there's a new therapy available and they know the type of patient that that therapy could be used for, as well as knowing the full profile clinically of the product, right? And being able to say, oh, as I've seen these 14 patients today, like this therapy could actually help this patient. They may be coming in thinking they have something like lupus, for example. Lots of things can sometimes look like lupus. It's sort of a catch-all in some ways when you can't find a good immunological diagnosis. But when we teach through medical education, through pharmaceutical advertising, we can help make that difference in that one patient's life by showing the 3 or 4 hallmarks for some rare disease that looks like this, but is actually quite different and needs a targeted therapy. And that's where an agency like Vue comes in. And that's where the science is really important. And I firmly believe that great science should not be buried under poor storytelling, right? We have to be concise, we have to be accurate, but we also have to apply empathy to everything that we do. We need to make sure that we don't forget that at the center of everything that we create, there's a patient and a family. And that is where our mission starts. And that is honestly where our mission ends with Vue. It is about reducing the complexity both in the understanding of all the medical jargon, but also to make sure that we deliver messages that are not just accurate, that are not just engaging, but really do have that patient top of mind.
Got it. What example can you provide us with to show us the actual difference that it makes
Yeah. So
in terms of like clinical differentiator specifically?
I'll give you one good example. So we were working on a rare disease a couple of years ago. We weren't the agency of record for this product, but we were actually the agency of record for another brand at the same pharmaceutical company. But through some interactions, like we met the one marketer on this super rare disease of children. It's a genetic disease and there's a enzyme replacement therapy. Basically, they're missing something in their bodies that they need to grow and function fully. They have a product that can basically give you that enzyme, as you have an IV injection. This case, there's no reason why there would be any pockets in the country where the diagnosis of this disease would be any different. But what we noticed when we looked at just patient level data was that in the South, especially, in the sort of Arizona Southwest area, in the Texas area, and in the Florida area, there weren't a lot of diagnoses of this one rare disease. So we jumped in from a science standpoint, right? We're like, are there any, genetic dispositions, that would say that there's a population that would be less served? And the answer was no. So then we started looking at just level of education and what was out there, and also a little bit of the payer dynamics that are different in some of these different areas of the country. And what we realized was that there are pockets of Spanish speaking individuals in these three areas where we are probably not getting the right message through. And in this rare disease, the message was simple. It's as simple as a mom knows best, or a mom always knows. And it's where if you're not reaching this milestone, and if you're not reaching these specific certain milestones, then it may not just be a growth issue. There may be a genetic diagnosis, right? And a treatment for that genetic diagnosis. So we really did an out of home campaign, at bodegas, at bus shelters, on buses, really hyper targeting our patient populations. And in that approach, we were able to diagnose a couple of patients in just a month's time for a super rare and ultra rare disease. And that just shows the power of not just being able to dig in quickly into the science and figure out, is there a reason or a rationale, but also coming up with an idea, a hypothesis, and then testing that out. And doing that with that, again, digital, right? That's a digital approach there. And we made sure that we tried something that was different. This brand didn't have millions of dollars and huge budgets like some of the network agencies have to play with, right? We play with smaller dollar values, and we were able to show meaningful difference to families, to those patients, but also for that brand.
Wow. If you're going down to the granularity of an actual bus stop, then you guys are thinking things through from high level strategy all the way to real on the ground deployment of marketing dollars. So I'm wondering, what are the set strategies that you've seen work best for deep tech type of approach?
So we can go at Vue from an idea, from a problem to developing a strategy to executing that campaign, and do that whole process in as little as 3 months' time. So we can go from your problem is X, digging into the science, digging into any sort of market level data, market dynamics to figure out what might be happening, to then coming up with an interesting idea, a campaign, right? And then we can very quickly, because we have a senior team in place and we have all of this in house expertise, we can quickly activate. Now, there are some functions that we don't have necessarily in house in our full time employees, but we have a stable of literally, at this point, I think it's a couple of hundred, you know, under CDA freelancers that have very specific skill sets. I'm talking about whether it's an AI prompt to some very specific, nuanced developmental skill. We can pull in the right people very quickly. We also have a proprietary team building technology that we've trademarked, the Think Tank. And that allows us to, with the use of AI and some personality assessments, as well as a number of other criteria, such as, therapeutic level expertise, be able to quickly put the right team together, knowing how different people function, knowing how you need different mindsets to get to a creative solution, especially. Get the right people in place, align on the strategy, talk and figure out exactly what we need to do, get the right players in place, both on our side and on our client side, and move it forward. In that process, we're always there. You've got that senior level expertise, and you've got that real attention to detail and the power of all of our collective experience to help navigate through regulatory complexity, to navigate through just getting alignment, especially at smaller companies. We like to work with first to commercialization companies. So they've gone from the science to clinical stage, and now they have to commercialize a product. And usually they've got small teams, right? And they're doing a lot of different functions, and they've got a lot of different stakeholders that they're trying to get this one mission to align to. We come in and we're basically a extension of their marketing arm, and we can help them through those hard conversations. And we apply all of the knowledge that we bring, plus all of the resources that we have from a media and a data standpoint as well, to make sure that we can get to that campaign launch, not just efficiently, but effectively. Do any A/B testing, do whatever switches we need to make sure that our omni-channel approach is working. Omni-channel means you are really finessing as you go based on the data that's coming in, and we're applying all of that. And we have true metrics, right? You went back, actually not you went back, but we started this conversation with a little bit of what's the difference between an independent and a network agency, right? And I said, part of that is our senior level expertise. The other part is how nimble we are, because we're not just going to say, well, you don't have the budget to do XYZ. That means that you don't get that service offering. We really do build creative solutions for our clients based on the needs that they have and based on us being able to do it better than others and do it more effectively and efficiently. And we do that through collaboration with our clients.
I mean, it's completely necessary, especially for an industry as complex as healthcare. It's notoriously lined with red tape, isn't it?
Yep, 100%. Everything that we do goes through a lot of scrutiny, both our clients have their own, marketing, legal, regulatory committees that everything goes through. And then everything that goes out into the world that you might be able to find online, for example, goes to the FDA as well through a process called 2253, which makes sure that they also know and they have a lens towards what you're doing. And if they find something to be, not appropriate, then the pharmaceutical company gets a letter from the FDA and a fine. And then that backtracks, of course, to the agencies and everyone supporting them too. So we make sure, and that's why our science first approach is so important, because anything that leaves this agency leaves with the mark of myself and the other strategists on the team to make sure that we really are aligned and it's the best science, it's the best clinical case for whatever claims we're trying to make.
Amazing. I can imagine that being located in Boston, that's known as Biotech Alley, right? What sort of really interesting startups have you seen or come
Yes.
to the table for you guys?
I'll say, we were working on RNAi years ago. People know RNAi because our COVID vaccines, right? They're all made out of RNA technology, but we were actually working on it many years before. That's just one example of being able to very nimbly and quickly develop therapies that have, a true effect on people's lives. Gene therapy also, we've been working on gene therapy for a while now. And, gene therapy has finally shown not just a promise, but the lasting efficacy and safety also. There's things happen here and there, like with a lot of therapies come off the market. But being in Boston, we've been able to, especially in the rare disease space, see solutions for problems that doctors just didn't want to deal with because they didn't have something. They didn't have a therapy that they knew that would work for these patients. It was something that was very hard both to see a patient go through, but also as a physician, if you don't have a tool for it, you don't necessarily think of it either. So seeing dynamic shift where we've introduced new therapies and new treatment paradigms help to educate on those paradigms and when and how to use those therapies and seeing the lives of those patients change. I mean, that's what makes it worthwhile.
I can imagine that with the work that you all do, it isn't just about growing businesses, it's also about saving lives and changing lives in the process. You guys are operating in a very unique zone of mastery and influence.
It's I think people talk about jobs and talking about separating work from life and having balance. But I can say for Catherine and myself, we wake up and we come to work knowing that what we're doing is really affecting someone's life and someone's family in a way that is so meaningful. And on a personal level, I have my own personal story. My daughter was born with a genetic condition. She's absolutely perfect, and you could never tell if you knew, but going through figuring out that diagnosis, going through the misinformation that we got from our physician with a newborn, going through the guilt of my wife thinking that maybe she had done something when really she didn't at all. But, it is this world that we live in today. It's the payer dynamics. It's making sure that even though we have AI now and we have information readily available, that the right information is getting to the right people at the right time so that that family that's in that hot seat listening to a diagnosis from a clinician is getting the right information. And, through that journey with your child or yourself as you're going through life with that diagnosis, that you're getting the best treatment. And that's what keeps us going at Vue. It's not uh it's not just a saying, it's our personal mission. And it's something that as we look at our culture and as we look at who we bring on in our company, that is the approach that we take.
There are really like two key points here that I want to unpack a bit more. First, team. How do you go about choosing who you bring onto the team?
So we have our in-house talent acquisition guru, Matthew West, and he has been in the industry a long time. And we both look for people who, one, really have that lens towards what we're trying to create, but also we take our culture very seriously, in this model of hybrid. And as a small business, we started in 2016, and it was in the office every day. And, like you stay till you get the work done, to then COVID. And we actually never went fully remote. We would have backyard meetings and all stay very separate from each other, but it's very hard to build a creative agency and have creative thinking if you're all just behind a Zoom screen, right? Like, so we always kept that sort of sense of being together and that sense of really engaging and having a dialogue and a discussion and spitfiring ideas off each other. I mean, that's where it all starts. Some of the best creative doesn't happen when you're sitting in an office. It happens back of the napkin as you're experiencing something. And so that experience is really important to us, but we also connect back and we give back to our communities. Everyone at our company commits 12 hours a year to community service. We partner with a number of different venues like Room to Grow and Pine Street Inn here in the Boston area. And also for us, we always say that profitability is a natural outcome of doing good work. So we focus on doing the good work and the rest just comes with it. We have business gurus that we have in place to take care of the finances and, deal with the books at the end of the day and keep everything moving so that Catherine and myself can really dig into the strategy. Myself on the marketing side and myself on the medical side, I mean, and Catherine on the marketing side. Really making sure that even for those early stage clients where we're still maybe a couple of years from commercialization, that we always have that lens towards what we want to be able to say when we've launched a product. And in that time of market shaping, making sure that we're activating the right levers so that doctors and patients can both come together with the right knowledge once these therapies are available.
So you guys have grown substantially for a marketing agency over the past 9 years. What key pillars have gotten you here?
We connect as people. We connect as a family. We have, and I say this not out of any sort of, you know, boistering, but really, we have a personal chef here in the office when people are together. We spent more money than I'd like to say on sandwiches over the years, right? And we're a healthcare agency. So we were like, let's eat clean, healthy meals together. As we have people in the office, let's make sure we engage and we connect. We share those wins and losses, and we continuously communicate the value of what we do. That happens in those conversations right here in the office. Like if I turn my camera around, you'll see the whole team out there right now trying to figure out some of the problems that our clients are facing as they're trying to bring therapies to market. And it's that collaboration. It's being together, thinking through things, learning from each other's experiences, whether those are highs or lows, and then being able to, at the end of the day, just share in the camaraderie that we've done something, we've made meaningful difference in people's lives.
That actually segues back relatively well to the second point that I wanted to ask you about, because you're trying to get to the patient at the right time with the right message so they know what they need to know in order to make the best decision possible. But at the same time, physicians also need to have the information that they need in order to better treat or provide the right guidance to a patient. I've had other healthcare innovators on the podcast, and they are trying to tackle the physician gap between their current skill set and general knowledge, mostly because of time constraints and what they really need to know in order to give the best information possible. Would you say that you guys are tackling that sort of issue as well? You're doing both at the same time.
We are, and we do it in two very different ways. One, promotionally as an advertising agency, right? The onus is on us to make sure that from a marketing perspective, we have those right and tailored messages to those different stakeholders that are out there in the venues where they're searching for information, right? So we make sure that we have our information either top of mind for that brand, or if it's more sort of market shaping or more disease state focused, like it's about bringing that right diagnostic information out there. We do that through a variety of ways, using existing channels that are out there, but also creating our own novel sort of experiences. Experience is key. This is where the adult learning principles really make sense. And this is where we know from a lot of the work that we do that hands on approach to learning is really valuable. So Some of the awards that we've won over the years are for that experiential interaction where we start to break down the diagnosis or we break down the nuances of a different disease. We've created escape the rooms and conferences, like that really are meant to have you walk away remembering two or three different facets of a disease that will make it so much easier the next time you see a patient to tie these three hallmarks together to get to a diagnosis. On the flip side of that, we also have developed an agency model where we do two things in tandem. One is that promotional advertising. The other is something that we call medical communications. Medical communications has traditionally lived in separate agencies. The network model has kind of changed things where everyone's kind of gobbled up and it's like different divisions. Each division does something else, but it's all under one agency. My background is in medical communications, which really is about promotional education. It's trying to drill down into exactly what you need to know about a disease and a therapeutic area. The traditional model for how doctors learn about these things is something that we call a speaker program. So years ago, and I'll say years ago because I don't think these are really relevant anymore, but a bunch of doctors would go to a McCormick and Schmidt's or Ruth Chris or pick your favorite steakhouse. The pharmaceutical company would sponsor these events, have a doctor giving a presentation for 45 minutes on a drug, bunch of people eating steak, drinking their wine. It doesn't work anymore. One, our clinicians are super busy. Two, most of the information is going to be the same as what you find on their website. And three, a lot of restrictions have changed over time from the FDA that make it so, there's a restriction on the amount of food you can have, the amount of drink you can have. So you're not getting the right people in these seats anymore. I like to say, especially, that the traditional dinner program is dead. So instead, how do you do that level of education in a different form, right? How do you make it meaningful? So we have a variety of different ways that we do these sort of peer-to-peer experiences. We've got approaches that are linked to different adult learning principles and what you need to learn, whether that's hands-on, whether that's collaborative, whether it's trying to think through different scenarios that are top of mind and bringing in others' experience and sharing from individuals, in an approach that we call a problem-based learning, for example. This is where the application of the adult learning principles is so important, but also doing it in a meaningful way so that if someone only has a few minutes, but let's say they get a subscription box in the mail every month, and that's kind of what they like, right? Like we have a peer-to-peer model that's very similar. It's something that we call AMP, where we break it down into the smallest portions of understandable ideas. We have some hands-on learning as well, maybe a little set of Legos or something that helps you contextualize some issue. And then that collaboration, right? Getting the right people together, building on the right influence networks across the country so that you're not just bridging the gap, but you're also bringing specialists together to make sure that they're working together around this one patient where they need to. Because for a lot of these diseases, it's a multi-stakeholder approach. So getting the right people together, knowing influence networks regionally with physicians can help just make that much of a difference in a patient's life by making their care far more streamlined. And that's where that education is so important. And you have to go beyond the traditional. And for most of our clients, they don't have the budgets to have 1,000 people out there going to talk about their drug or their disease. So it's finding the innovative ways through digital and making sure that whatever we create, that we can have enduring and lasting content for our clients. So making snippets, making sure we're housing things on websites where people could find it and easily search for it. And of course, medical content has all changed. Everyone's using AI too. So it's really optimizing for AI and making sure that your brand comes up with the right information that's truly sound. And regardless of what AI filter you use or what search engine you use, that the right information is bubbling up on the disease or the diagnostic or the therapy.
It sounds like you guys are experimenting with AEO or GEO. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, we are.
Yeah. Yeah. So that said, considering the complexity of what you guys are executing on, I'm wondering how scalable the firm itself is. How are you guys growing as a firm, and what sort of bottlenecks are you finding in the current landscape?
So the beauty of being an independent agency is that we're not beholden to a board of directors. When we need to bring people on, we bring people on. We're very careful about our growth strategy because, again, our team wants to be focused in the work. So we're very careful on the work that we bring on. We also have Matthew, as I talked to before, from our talent acquisition standpoint, always looking at who is available and who's out there so that as we get the right opportunity, we can easily bring people on through that think tank approach I was talking about before, our proprietary team building methodology. We're also able to connect the right people to the right client to make really successful teams. And so in doing that, plus our model, our stable of freelancers, as I also said before, we're able to very nimbly have the right people in place. And in this world, that interaction with the client is so important. And we want to make sure that our clients also have that visibility into the different people on our team. And so we can build really, really functional teams that work well together externally and internal.
Got it. In terms of growth, you have the team there for whoever is at the table considering jumping on board with you guys.
Exactly.
And considering how niche and specific you guys can be, you are using a referral model and then a content-based approach, looking at brand.
No, we have our full-time staff here in the office. It's really as we need to bring people on for a very specific skill set or a very, creative is very subjective. For example, there's a client may like one style of creative, but not another. So we make sure that we have a creative pool that really runs the gamut. So we could very quickly bring together, let's say, 4 teams, give them each 12 hours to concept on an idea and come up with 75 different creative concepts, all aligned to one strategy and all aligned to the overall goal that the client has with the product. Put it all out there, right? And these could be in different formats. Some might look like ad lobs, some might look just more an idea or a great headline and an image that kind of conveys it, right? But it's bringing in the breadth of different ideas and sentiments to figure out the right way to move forward. Because what's the fun in having 2 or 3 concepts when you can have a real sound approach that runs the gamut so you can figure out the right way forward for a brand. And that's something that, you might think that that's a big agency and that's, really, really expensive undertaking. We make this very efficient for our clients so that we can give them that level of ideation and strategy and really move that brand forward quickly. Because at the end of the day, it's about speed as well as the efficiency and the strategies. Our clients don't have time to waste. They've got lots of different things to do, and this is a small part of what they need to do to move their brands forward. We take that very seriously. Each component of that brand means something to us, and we're very proud of the work that we do. We use the efficiency model there to make sure that we can get the breadth of available options to our clients.
Okay. So last couple of questions here because we're running up on time. Considering everything that you guys see across the industry and also internally based off of your own use of AI, I'm wondering if you guys have seen any sort of, for lack of a better way of saying it, $1 billion ideas for AI implementations or AI products. Are you guys experimenting with any of those at all? Do you have any?
I won't say much more about it because, we're trying to build our own AI models for a couple of different things, but I've seen it work well in a lot of different ways. I'll bring up one. There's a company that took sort of that regulatory process that I talked about and used AI to make it far more efficient and have that as an offering. It's a very arduous process. And at the end of the day, the human component is huge, right? Because you've got someone who's checking the literature, making sure that a claim makes sense based on their knowledge. A lot of that can be done with AI now, right? Like we've got, especially when it comes to medical literature, there are literally hundreds of millions of articles. Like you can only know so much. And that's where the AI to make sure that this makes sense with a product's label goes far beyond the ability of just one person or one person's skill or their experience. So that's where I've seen AI work really well. I think at the end of the day, it's really making sure that there's someone to interpret the findings of AI. Like that's really important. And for us, I think there's a lot of ways where we want to use AI to increase efficiency, but we want to be at that forefront, right? So more to come.
Well, I'm happy to hear. Last question here. We always open up the floor at the end of these podcasts to provide you with the platform to speak directly to the audience to say whatever you'd really like to say. If you'd like, the floor is yours. And quick idea here, maybe the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Best piece of advice I ever received was to listen more and say less. And I think that has taken me very far in my career because someone starts talking, you have lots of ideas, right? But it's not until you really listen that you understand the nuance of their problem. And once you fully understand what someone is trying to solve for, you can then come up with a good solution, right? But you got to give people time to get their ideas out. The same thing goes for everything that we create at the agency. When it comes back to the patient, right? I keep coming back to the patient. It's really about digging in and listening to their story, listening to the hurdles, listening to what they had to go through. And it's about listening to our clinicians and figuring out of all the complexity that they have to deal with, what is it that's going to help them to see that patient or find that patient and link that diagnosis, right? And it comes out of listening and then coming up with that idea together with collaboration. And I think that's one of my big learnings, especially as we've built this agency and as we've really made a name for ourselves here in pharmaceutical advertising. But like you said, as a something I want everyone to go away with is just the power of an independent agency right now. Someone who is doing this not just to get sold, but as an agency that really just wants to do good work, that's built a team of really great people that are dedicated to their business, that are dedicated to the mission and want to bridge that gap. And that's what we have here at Vue.
Amazing. Amazing. I'll have to take that one to the books in a way. Have to implement that myself more, right? Well, Vic, I really appreciate your time. And everybody, this was Vikram from Vue Health, Chief Medical Officer and part owner of Vue Health. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Vic, for your time today.
Thanks. It was a lot of fun.
And of course, everybody out there, if you know any healthcare startups or businesses that are looking to really break through efficiently, then of course, reach out to Vue Health. And as always, you guys already know what we do. We grow, buy, and sell businesses, and we also use AI to do that. So if you know anybody who's interested, you can always reach out at our site. All right, until the next one, everybody.